Ohayou gozaimasu. Good morning, everyone. Welcome, or should I say, yokoso oedo. I'll try this. Kyou wa minasan okoshi itadaki arigatou gozaimasu. Mata omaneki itadaki arigatou gozaimasu. 私はザックと言います。Ruby のコメンターで、Ruby on Rails のコントリビューターで、Shutterfly という会社のモバイル API チームで働いています。私は1年日本語を勉強しています。日本語の練習ができるので、日本に来るのが大好きです。皆さんぜひ日本語で喋りましょう。でも発表は英語で喋る。ごめんなさい。わかりやすく喋るように頑張ります。So, up until about 2 weeks ago, I didn't know what I was going to say here today. I've just been doing way too many of these things. And so it was actually 2 weeks ago at Koichi's wedding party that I decided, like, on the way home on the train, what I was going to talk about. And I'm not going to talk about myself. I usually, I know maybe a few of you I've seen at conferences, you might have seen me speak before. And a lot of my talks have a lot of fluff in it, but not this time. No time for fluff today. But I want to talk about a good friend of mine. Nomi Tomodachi. Because I've never actually seen him speak up on stage. And I think more people should know the truth and should know who he is and all the great things he does for this community. And the person I'm talking about is not going to say. Nobody knows this guy. When I started writing this talk, I went on Google and I searched for Nobu, and it turns out 0 results. But I kept searching for hours and hours, and I finally found out how this guy came to be. And I'm going to share with you his true story today. It all began about 100 kilometers from here, at the heart of the Honshu Island, where he was forged deep below in the fires of Mount Fuji. Roughly where it belongs. So after he was born, he made his way down the mountain. And a shadowy figure appears. Unsure what it could be, it happens to be his first friend ever. At first, the cat was a little concerned, wasn't sure, what this thing was. He smelled kind of bad. But they quickly became best friends. The cat took Nobu on his back and they rode off into the sunset. But it wasn't long before little Nobu got hungry, as he does. And the cat had no idea. This cat had no idea what to do. He had no experience with babies, so he's like, later. But not far off was this young couple that just recently got married, an entomologist and Professor Oak, or Okidoshi. Maybe you know him. So they're out in the wilderness of Mount Fuji, and they're studying bugs. They're looking at this praying mantis, and they heard the sounds of this baby crying off in the distance. So they rushed over to find him, like right as the cat jetted. And trying to calm him down, and obviously he was hungry, but they didn't have any food. All they had was this bottle. So you know where this is going. He quickly grabbed the beer and drank it all before they could even let him go. And from, that was it. From then on, they headed back to their home in Tochigi to raise this kid. No, they'd been trying forever to have their own child, but they just couldn't. So they got lucky. They found a really good one. They did. And it turns out he's really smart. Professor Oak taught him everything he knew. All the math, all the science, all the physics, everything. And it wasn't until his high school years when he actually joined the physics club. And this is him impressing all of his new friends. But he wasn't really into computers yet. He was just I like science and bugs and stuff. But it wasn't until just before going to university, on one lunch break with his team, they went to this nearby park, and there just happened to be an air balloon event going on. Nobu was like, what are these things flying in the sky? And he was just so surprised by these, that this thing could be up in the air and there's people inside of it and they're flying around. He loved the idea, and from that day forth he was hooked, and he just wanted to do this from then on. He would spend day and night architecting balloons and trying to build these things on his own so that he could fly, so that he could take off one day and leave all of his troubles behind. Of course he has a stash of sake in that basket. But with all this hard work, all this hacking, late night, he started writing C in his university years, trying to design these balloons. And that's really when his grades started to drop off. But his grades may have fell, but his ability to program increased dramatically as he learned how to program these things better and design them better. He immediately decided that university wasn't going to work out, and he wanted to be a professional balloon flyer. But as we know Nobu today, lives with his family in Kanuma, Tochigi, and works on Ruby fixing all the bugs that exist. Literally all of them. I respect Nobu greatly, and I learn every day from the work that he does. And so the rest of the time for this morning, I want to actually show you some of his recent work in the last few months. And so that everyone here can understand what he actually does for Ruby. So the first thing I want to talk about is a recent bug in OpenSSL that affects many, many people. Essentially, if you're using an older version of OpenSSL and you try to connect to a website, you just get a random site faults. So this is really bad, right? This could affect a lot of people. But we have Nobu. Kampai. And he fixed it. He found out what was wrong. And essentially what the problem was when we're getting the string back from the response, it wasn't checking for a null byte, so it would just crash when trying to create a C string. So that's Nobu's patch. And it seems simple enough when you read it, but it's some pretty advanced C that's going on there. Wow, I have so much to talk about. Okay. Time's ticking. All right. Memory leaks, OpenSSL. This stuff happens. Trying to verify a private key in OpenSSL recently would cause severe memory leaks. Little do you know. Because Kampai. There was a recent test failure in Windows on the flip-flop test. I know this is critical to many production applications. But what would happen when you run the test suite is when you run it flip-flop in a thread, you're supposed to get back 3 values in this test case. It just literally made me want to flip the table. But compile. So Nobu refactored that test and fixed it, which is great. The next bug we're going to look at is probably less common, but when sending initialized copy to yourself, you get a seg fault. So don't try to copy yourself. If you try to run this code before patch level, a recent patch level, you would get a seg fault. But come by. We have Nobu. If you've ever tried to use Marshall and continuations, maybe it looked like this, where you use call CC when trying to dump the object to Marshall, and you get a seg fault. Thankfully, only Ruby Gems uses Marshall, so it doesn't seem that important. But we have Nobu. This one's less obvious by the title, but Sam Saffron found a seg fault when converting objects to a hash and comparing them. So we have 2 classes, and basically just pass in the attribute and then just try to assign it to a hash. And if we do that and compare them, we get a segmentation fault. So many bugs. Such Nobu. If you've ever used math, like the math-n library, and round in recent history, you would also get a seg fault when running this code. It seems pretty straightforward, you might end up doing this recently. But thank God we have Nobu. I couldn't even begin to go into the details of what he's actually fixing in these bugs. I looked at the patches for everyone, and I just have I have no idea how this guy does it. It's all those years of training with Professor Oak. So the last recent bug that I found interesting was comparing time, an instance of time, with just anything basically, but an empty string even would cause a system stack overflow error. Seems bad. This was actually right after the release, or right before the release of 2.1, I believe. So if we didn't have someone working on Ruby full time to fix these things, we wouldn't have had, this would have been out and released into the wild. But thank God we have Nobu. And now I go back to Japanese. お分かりのように、これらのパッチはノブが素晴らしいことを証明しています。私たちはみんなノブのように一生懸命になるべきですよ。皆さんの Ruby をより良くするために。今日は皆さんお越しいただきありがとうございました。残りのお江戸会議も楽しんでください。B ちゃんのキーノートをとっても楽しみにしています。頑張って。ご不明な点がございましたら、中田さんにお問い合わせ。 中さんはステージに来てください。
せっかくなんで。
Stop hacking for a second.
俺はおちょこです。ショートグラス。
本日はお集まりいただきご苦労様でございました。Enjoy。
ありがとうございます。ノブの生活発表ザックがやるんです。斬新な曲でした。ありがとうございました。ザックでした。ちょっと早いけどどうしようかな。
Q&A じゃないんです。
Q&A。ノブに質問がある人いらっしゃる。ノブかザックに質問がある人いらっしゃいましたら、ぜひこの機会に。じゃあ今ですね。マイクを出します。お願いします。
質問は日本語で失礼いたします。中田さんは一つのバグを潰すのに大体ビールを何リットル消費しているのか教えてください。
ちょっと統計取ったこともないのでわかんないんですけど、場合によってはだから一缶で2つ3ついくこともありますし、長くかかるときはしばらく1ヶ月ぐらい考えてたりすることもあるので、ちょっとかなりばらつき大きいと思います。統計取るの難しいので、今後の形とさせてください。
ありがとうございます。
素晴らしいスピーチありがとうございます。で、ノブさんはシラフでもコードをかけるんですか？
それはもちろん。シラフですよ、いつも。
他はどうですか？お酒のことが
それから離れろよ。
なんか今日朝一で目撃情報があって、なんか金色の缶を持って朝っぱらからやってたっていう噂を聞いてるんですが、それはともかくさっきまで今書いてたパッチはどんなパッチですか？教えてください。
さっきの、発表で、オープン URI の、何でしたっけ、ストリング IO を使う、スレッショルドを外部からコンストゲットと、コンストデリートって、コンストセットかで書き換えてるのが、ちょっとあれはあまりにもあれだろうと思って、オプションを追加するパッチでした。
新井さんの発表でパッチが一つできた。
今の新井さんの発表を聞いてパッチが今1個生み出されるとして、
新井さんじゃなくて、いやシンガポールの彼
メソのやつですね。はいはい。もう1個2個ぐらいいけるけども、どうでしょう。ですか？お、遠い。頑張ります。
先日は結婚式に来てくださってありがとうございます。それだけ
ありがとうございます。
印象に残ってるパ 印象に残ってるか、なんかこれは良かったとか辛かったとかそういう
終わるといつも忘れちゃうんでねなんだろう、最近のよくずっと来てるのはプリペンドとかスーパー絡みでいろいろとおかしな結果になるっていうのがずっと続いてて、ポツポツ続いてて、まあちょっと今のところ忘れられない状態ですね。
ありがとうございます。さあ、どうですか？いらっしゃいませんか？ない？じゃあ、このところにしておきますかね。はい、じゃあ、以上です。じゃあ、ノブとザックにもう一度拍手を。ザックシェービング。